She missed out on the show last year, but Oakley is such a good buddy that he wouldn't even return the tickets he kept them. God bless her, we needed the money. It went to a good cause that night because I gave it all to the hospital that night. In fact, when all was said and done, we had all the expenses paid, and I walked out of here, I donated the check to the hospital for $2,872. Oakley and Earl took me out on a fishing trip one time. It was a lobster fishing trip. It was the most lobsters ever I seen in my life. And it was the sickest time I was ever in my life. You think you were seasick? You were never seasick. I was seasick. All right, and the thing about this, I couldn't say nothing about it because you got to know Oakley and Earl Johnson. They can really cut you off pretty fast. Right? Anyway, I wrote a song called The Day I Went Fishing Down the Bay with Earl and Oakley Johnson. I like to do it for you, Rich. A couple of good old buddies of mine invited me one day to help them haul their lobster pots they had out across the bay. It was 5 o'clock next morning, we were steaming out of the cove. I was leaning over the front of the boat, dressed up in oilskin clothes. It was cold, foggy and raining, and the wind was down southwest. But the lobster sure was plentiful, and I was trying to do my best. The smell from the herring we were using for bait was making my face turn pale, and the swell and the boat rocking back and forth was putting me through pure hell. Oh, the boys wouldn't even let me stop to eat. It took everything I had that day to stay up on my feet. I'll never forget how sick I was that day when Earl and Oakley Johnson took me fishing down the bay. That afternoon, the got worse, my heart was up in my mouth. The rain was dripping down my neck, I was almost passing out. But I couldn't tell the boys how sick I was, cause they'd tell the folks back home. So I just hung on to the side of the boat, shivering in my clothes. Yeah, the boys wouldn't even let me stop to eat. It took everything I had that day, just staying on my feet. And I'll never forget how sick I was that day when Earl and Oakley Johnson took me fishing down the bay. I tell you, it wasn't very good. It was almost dark that evening when I climbed back on the wharf, and Oakley's wife said, "Harve, my son, you look like you're almost starved. I got a pan of cod tongues frying, come in and have something to eat." But I said I was chewing my heart all day and all I needed was sleep. I headed for home as fast as I could, where I went directly to bed, with waves that reach 100 feet still splashing around in my head. And I'll never forget as long as I live the beating I took that day when Earl and Oakley Johnson took me fishing down the bay. Oh, the boys wouldn't even let me stop to eat, that's true too. It took everything I had that day, just staying on my feet. And I'll never forget how sick I was that day when Earl and Oakley Johnson took me fishing down the bay. When Earl and Oakley Johnson took me fishing down the bay.